Welcome to Dronecast, Rethinking Public Safety one drone at a time, a podcast by DroneSense. We explore real-world applications of drones and emergency response, offering a close examination of evolving trends in drone technology and its impact on public safety. I'm your host, John McLeod, Director of Customer Success here at DroneSense. Welcome to Dronecast. I'm your host, John McLeod. Joining me today is Philip Miller, who is the Medicolegal Death Investigator at the Oklahoma Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. Philip, it's fair to say, is a pioneer in his work using drones to reshape how death scenes are assessed. We believe that his Chief Medical Examiner's Office is the first in the U.S. to use drones for this use case, and they're making huge advancements as they evolve their program. Beyond his day-to-day responsibilities, Philip has been putting his COA to good use and getting involved in anthropological work, mutual aid, and interagency missions. So a big thanks to Philip for giving us some of his valuable time to talk to us today on Dronecast. Philip, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
So just wanted to reflect on the intro there really quick regarding our drone program being the only one in the U.S. for medical examiners or coroner's offices. I don't think that there may be some others out there. I just haven't heard of any. I've heard of some offices using a drone, but having a complete drone program in itself, I don't know of any. But to say that there isn't, we're the sole one, I wouldn't say that.
No, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, there's so many people with the diversity in the public safety community and across public service in the United States with so many independent offices. Who knows what exciting things people are doing out there? It's really interesting to come across them, but we're excited to talk to you today. When I saw your title, and I think we've talked about this before, when I saw medical legal in your title, I was like, well, I'm going to have to consult Dr. Google because that's a new title to me. So for the benefit of other listeners who are similarly new to that phrase, can you tell us a little bit what that means and kind of what your day-to-day is like?
So yeah, medical legal, obviously two parts there. It's a combination of education and skills that encompass the area of medicine and law. So my typical day-to-day would be, well, let me back up. So with medical legal death investigation, we are tasked with investigating any deaths that are reported to us, and we go from there. And so if we decide that it meets our criteria to become a medical examiner case and we accept jurisdiction on it, then sky's kind of the limit as far as how in depth we go in investigating the case. If it could be a hospital case that meets our criteria, but may not warrant something such as like a homicide that's at a scene or a public view where we're going to go out and actually process. But it's my typical day-to-day, basically come on duty and start working on follow-up until the phone rings and go from there. I mean, every day is really different. There's no rhyme to reason. Death knows no bounds and no time. People always ask if you're busier on holidays or certain events, and not really. During my time of doing this, I've worked like a New Year's Eve and a New Year's Day and just the bottom floor from going done and crazy busy. And then maybe the next year I'll work the same shift and absolutely nothing happened. So it's the same with like a weekend versus a weekday. It's just, you never know. And I still get excited to this day driving to work because I don't know what's going to come in. I don't know what's going to happen. And I think that is a big part or a perk of this job versus somebody else who knows I'm going to work. This is what I'm going to do. And that's that. I don't know what's going to come in. Could be nothing. And it could be a case that warrants national media attention. So, but when I get to work and people call in the death to report, I will take the information and go from there and see if it meets criteria. And based upon that, I may be going out to a scene. And if I do, I will process the body and some of the scene. When you talk about medical legal death investigator, generally our scene is the body, our jurisdiction, and then the scene itself would be law enforcement. Now, both of our investigations are independent of each other. However, they can complement each other, but we work together and turn in an investigation, which consist of photographs, maybe evidence collected. I'll try and get as much background about the person, maybe if it's unknown on their medical history at the time that I get there, or circumstances leading up to maybe something that's traumatic, and talk with law enforcement and talk with families. And I love the aspect of the job about being a voice for those who can no longer speak anymore. And I take that to heart. And I think almost every death investigator I know does. And we have some great investigators throughout the nation, and especially in my agency all across the state, just some wonderful people. But we are kind of overshadowed or maybe just thrown out of the spotlight a lot because people see death scenes and they see police, fire, EMS, and we're kind of like the unseen person that comes in and does our thing. But to be the voice for somebody who can't speak any longer, and to try and get answers for families and maybe even some closure, or if they've been wronged, our investigation can help bring justice. But I take a lot of honor and pride in that, and I love it. And so far, so good. Seen a lot of bad stuff, but it's rewarding in itself that I'm playing an important part.
Well, and certainly as a member of a community, even if you're unsung, we certainly do appreciate that work because it plays an important role for sure. When we see people stand up these kind of programs, the two common things we've seen is either someone gets volunteered to stand up a program because they thought about it, or someone was already using a drone and got interested in using it within their professional career. But it sounds like you guys came into it a slightly different way. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came into using drones as part of your program?
Yeah, so it's kind of a really interesting story, and personally, a little silver lining for me. I grew up on Air Force bases all over the world, and my childhood dream was to be a fighter pilot in the United States Air Force. What kid doesn't want to? But even more so, seeing them every day just kind of fueled that. And so I've always had a passion for aviation. However, I don't know, about a year or so into this career, I was standing over a dead body that was decomposing, and I heard a jet fly over, and I just thought to myself, there's a disconnect somewhere. What happened? But you fast forward to when I came on here at the chief medical examiner in Oklahoma, unbeknownst to me, the chief investigator at the Oklahoma City office, Jeremy Benavides, a good friend of mine, he had worked hard with upper administration to acquire 2 drones, and he had a vision for using them and implementing them into what we do. However, he ended up leaving and taking a position in a different career path. But I found out that the drones had been purchased and were delivered and just sitting there. And I got super excited about it. Begged my supervisor, Sammy, and my deputy chief, Dr. Lander, if I could take one of them and implement it into our office. I'm out of the Tulsa office, just FYI. We have 2 offices, and they let me do that. And I just kind of ran with it. And so that's pretty much how it came to be implemented into our office. And again, I know it's a drone, and not a fighter jet. But for me, it's a little bit funny silver lining there. So,
well, it's interesting too with our guests. There's so many of them have been private pilots or just interested in aviation, and that's kind of some of the through lines through it. So it's good to see you're part of that group too. As we mentioned, we talked a little bit about you being a pioneer. Certainly, maybe not the only person who's doing the same thing for sure, which is exciting as well too. But tell us a little bit, what are the drones and tools you're using today?
So when we first started, we had a Mavic 2 Pro. Just basic model, wasn't even the Enterprise edition. When I look back at it and how we were just first starting, it was actually a good decision to get that, because you don't want to go all out on something that you don't know if it's going to work for your agency or not, especially something like that. So it was a really good drone, and with just something that I felt comfortable flying or operating, to where I'm not going to be worried that I just wiped out thousands of dollars of equipment. Not that it wasn't cheap, but it was just a good model and good training to get started. But now we have a Matrice 30T, a DJI. And so that was our next step when I met with our state chief, Dr. Pfeiffer, who's been instrumental and very supportive in this whole ordeal. So big kudos to him. And that's another good thing about when you start out is having a good support system makes everything that much better. So anyhow, we met a group of us and he authorized the purchase of that and said, let's see where it goes from here and collect more data. And so far it's going good. And what I'd like to see happen with it is obviously build and acquire a fleet to cover the entire state. So we just don't have one. So, but Matrice 30, it's the thermal edition, which has been very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have a spotlight and PA. Spotlights come in very handy, especially at night when I use a thermal looking for heat signatures at a crime scene and then see something, then I can light it up with the spotlight and zoom in and go, oh, well, that's nothing. Or, hey, you know what? This is a cell phone over here. This is good evidence that maybe a suspect dropped, or it might be the deceased individual, who knows. But I had a motor vehicle accident 2 nights ago and I turned on the thermal. I could see a vehicle. I could see the deceased. And then I saw just this kind of small heat signature, and it was about, 30, 40 yards away from the vehicle. And so I hit it with the spotlight and it just ended up being a battery from the vehicle that got thrown off. It's been super helpful. So the PA system I haven't really used yet. I think if we ever do use that, it would be more on a mutual aid aspect if we're helping look for somebody that's lost, something like that. One of our biggest tools is DroneSense, which has been, I shouldn't say game changer, because I think in order to use that term, you would have to be in the game for a while and then have this piece come along. And we haven't really been in it for a while, but it has made a difference for the time that we've had this drone program, and being able to live stream to certain people and give them a heads up or show them, hey, this is what we're working with out here. And the possibilities with it are just endless when you think about it, especially living in Tornado Alley. If we have a big tornado come through, any kind of storm, flooding, I can respond to any part of the state where that has occurred, or even if it's not natural, like a storm or some maybe man-made disaster or aircraft accident, large explosion, all sorts of possibilities. But being able to go there, put the drone up, and link DroneSense to our command staff or upper administration back at the office to say, hey, this is what we got going on. And from then on, they can start figuring out what resources we need and what actions to take and what needs to go where and who needs to respond, things like that. So big help. And then as far as recently, just been sending a lot of feed and having people give me feedback as to what they see on the other end. And then also working with other agencies who call out for mutual aid, being able to give them a second set of eyes away from where I'm at. And maybe they see something that I don't. So it's almost like taking my eyes and going, here, this is what I see, and handing my eyes out to a bunch of other people. And so they see 2 sets of eyes are better than one. And in this case, the sky's the limit.
What you've talked about really eloquently is both how specific and how sensitive the work that you guys do is. And you have a lot in common with other people in your career path, but sometimes not so much with other people who don't understand what you do. But when you're talking to other folks who are in your line of work and they're saying, gosh, you have a drone, what are you doing with it that's an advantage that I don't have? Like, what would you tell them in terms of that it's been really useful to you? Like, I think you hinted on a couple of those things, but I wanted to kind of, if you're talking to that person specifically, what would your pitch be to them?
I think 2 big takeaways that I've noticed lately, or with the whole thing, is time saved. Say I have a motor vehicle accident that involves multiple vehicles, multiple fatalities, where people are ejected here and there. Those scenes, they're in public view, want somebody's loved one just out there forever, but you also want to do a thorough investigation. And I found with the drone, it's just cut time in half, being able to get there and instead of walk all the way through the entire scene, taken photo of this. I can just put up the drone and map it. In 4 minutes, I've got the entire scene. Now, that's not to say I'm still going to take some photos close up of the deceased and anything evidentiary, and then some stuff in the vehicles that you might not be able to see by air, but I don't have to walk the entire thing and then tie up other resources, and it gets things moving a lot quicker. And then I can go back later and I've got everything right there and be able to GPS certain spots and see where certain things happened. And I wouldn't say a lot of time, but lately I've been trying a new thing to, if I have time, depending on the scene itself, is do a fly through and give our doctors a first person view of this is, what happened, and kind of a fly through overview of the scene instead of just like a map photo from the top. And that's been really eye opening there. When you think about death investigation or even crime scene or a homicide, when the investigations first started years ago, you were lucky to get one photo. That was usually like a Polaroid of the face at autopsy. And like, that was it. And now you have multiple, sometimes hundreds of photos of an autopsy, hundreds of photos of a death scene or crime scene. And then now you have photos from the sky, and it's just technology is taken off. And so I would say that. And then another thing, advantages with the drone is safety. There are just people come across bodies in all sorts of remote locations, and to where we can't get to because we don't have the tools. We have to call on like special resources, whether it be like, I don't know, maybe a team to rappel down a cliff to get a body, divers that need to go into bodies of water, or even take like an airboat, maybe a helicopter or something to a certain location. Or if there's environmental hazard, say like a train tips over and you have a chemical spill around bodies, or a plant fire, something like that, being able to fly the drone in, zoom in on anything I want, or even fly down to it, map the scene, collect all my photos, and then have the team recover the body is just awesome. Because before it was either, well, we don't have any photos at all, or rely on what somebody can get us that's going to go down there. So, and then being able to fly into a location, even a motor vehicle accident, standing off the roadway, because there's a lot of times you have these looky-loos that are hitting public safety personnel. So yeah, I would say safety and time have been really big.
It's interesting that the technology is moving super quick, right? And we're always kind of trying to keep up with some of the capabilities, which is super exciting when you think about multispectral analysis. Thermal was either not cost effective or not available all that long ago, and what that's added to it. What do you think about the limitations you have right now as the technology exists? Are there things you're looking forward to coming down the pipe, or are there things you're having to work around that you wish were better?
I would say, as far as equipment wise, probably anthropological scenes where there may be a clandestine grave or just an old burial, and being able to see the terrain differently. We can to a certain aspect, but I think you have to have a special camera to do that, and to have one drone that encompasses all this stuff, like a Matrice, or not Matrice, I think a Mavic 3, they have a multispectral version, but that's something that our drone doesn't carry. And so to have something that utilizes all sorts of cameras, thermal, multispectral LiDAR, in one setting that's cost effective, I should say, that'd be something that I would look forward to. And then obviously just the normal wants that everybody wants, like long batteries.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like our newer drone having the hot swappable batteries, so I'm able to land and right back up in just a few moments.
Yeah, that's a great part about the 30 for sure. As you think about your program, kind of being an earlier or early adopter, kind of the hard part is there's not necessarily a playbook to follow from the jump. You're having to figure out things as you go. Is there a couple of particular bigger challenges you came across that you've had to overcome that are kind of telling, that stick out in your mind?
Yeah, just really kind of learning all the laws and rules to the whole thing. I think in a drone program, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. There's enough information out there already. But for me, it was finding resources and help. And I was able to do that. Luckily, we have a drone operator for the Tulsa Fire Department, Gabriel Line, who's well known in the drone industry. And he was very helpful in answering anything that I had. And I'm sure I bothered him a million times. But yeah, just having somebody to go to when you start this and just be like, hey, am I allowed to do this? And can I do that? And where do I need to get this training in? I mean, just being able to have that was a big deal.
So if somebody watches this and reaches out to you and says, hey, I'm in your line of work, Philip, I'm thinking about doing something similar. Is there a piece of advice you could give me, something you wish you'd known when you started out that would have saved me a lot of heartache? Is there something in particular that stands out to you?
Again, I would say just know what you can and can't do, what's legal, what's not legal, when and where you can't fly. Those were big obstacles, and being able to find the right resources to help me, put me in the right direction and get me started. Those were really big ones. Also communication with agencies and even within your own agency can be a big step to overcome as far as challenges. Just making sure everybody's on the same page, because it's a whole new aspect to the job and not everybody understands it. And so that was a big challenge to overcome. I can tell you things that I foresee people having that I didn't have, and I'm grateful for, is support. I see in a lot of other agencies or people starting drone programs and they don't have the support at all. And I didn't have that. Again, our chief, Dr. Pfeiffer, has just been great. My boss, Sammy Richardson, I don't think drones, air technology is her thing. However, she saw that it was something I was passionate about and supported me. And I know I bugged her to death on many of things, and she just kept on. She hung in there with me. And even our deputy chief, Dr. Lanner, who was great and gave me a lot of support, and even my coworkers, because when you talk about what we do and the time that it takes up, and then you're like, hey, well, I want to implement this new tool on there. And then some people just think like, it's going to take more time or whatever. And we have to communicate and you notify it so you can get out here. And that's probably one of the bigger obstacles, is proper communication so that there's no time lost in notifying. So when you look at the grand scheme of things, you want your program to eventually be where you have a fleet of drones and everybody knows how to use this tool. And so that doesn't become an issue. But when you're first starting out and you're the only one, that's a big obstacle. And I don't say that I'm the only one. We do have some 107 pilots at our Oklahoma City office. One of them is an investigator, Adam Puckett, and two of them are actually anthropologists, Carlos Zambrano and Sarah Gitz. However, the drone is in Tulsa. So how do you implement a program and then share it amongst multiple people at two different complete locations? So to say that I'm the only one, that would be wrong. But we do have a lot of interest in our agency, and I'm hoping that we can grow from there and that help us to get over that obstacle of the whole time thing. That's very crucial. I would tell somebody starting out is network with all your local agencies. That's where you're going to get your support, and you'll be able to lean on those individuals and let them know that you're out there, to let them know that you have that capability, and get together and talk, have conversations, and just maintain a good rapport. And then when things come up and happen, then you'll start getting notified earlier, and that will cut down on the time and allow you to gather your resources and get out there. So yeah, I would say communication and time is just a really big obstacle to overcome when you're first starting out because nobody wants to wait.
No, nobody does for sure. It's interesting that you bring that up in the two areas I see programs having struggles with when I talk to our customers is one, community relations, particularly in law enforcement, where they're trying to make sure everybody understands exactly what they're doing and everyone's bought in, but also within their own organization, which you've spoken to here a little bit about the leadership in your organization being supportive. Is there anything you've picked up along the way dealing internally with your own organization about kind of trumpeting what you guys are doing that's been successful, or techniques that you've used, or just things you've learned that said, hey, this kind of communication internally has really been valuable for us in supporting our mission?
I would just say the drone data itself speaks for, and to be able to say, here, look, and then that just kind of tells the story itself. That would be probably what comes to mind there. When I think of any other like stuff that's kind of worked against us per se, I would gather that almost every agency deals with this, and it's funding.
Mm-hmm.
I see that with programs and other departments trying to get that off the ground and people not seeing how valuable it is. And so having that data to show, hey, this is what it does and look what it just did, and pass that along throughout your agency or other agencies. And if your agency allows you to, even share it with other agencies to help them. Don't, be so secluded, and help each other out. Like I said, I don't think the wheel needs to be reinvented so much with drone programs. There's so much info out there. Just share, help each other. And if you can give them some data to show this is what it does and help them, then by all means, each agency is going to have their own set of rules critiqued to whatever their, I guess, internal policies are. That's a given, but the meat and potatoes, I think, is already there. That's another thing that could be a challenge for some people. So help each other out. I'm always trying to help other agencies out around here, or even get help from them. And so, yeah, networking's been really great. Like I said, Gabe over at Tulsa Fire has been awesome. And having that has just really been a blessing.
Awesome. My experience has been everybody has sometimes an example story of using the technology that they've come across that really resonates with people as they're explaining, hey, this is how it's benefited my program. Is there a particular instance that comes to mind if you're talking to maybe even just a layperson about, hey, this is how we use the technology and this has been the benefit that sticks out to you?
Yeah. Again, just reflecting on time and safety, but also the capability to get a different view of the scene that we do has just been, it's amazing. I mean, to be able to set waypoints or create an area route and have the drone run it and then go back and you have like this large map and you can just sit there and zoom in and mark things with GPS or measure things out and create this map at centimeter accuracy. It's just, sometimes I can't wrap my head around it. It's so awesome. Yeah. In fact, I had one not too long ago where I think it was a motor vehicle fatality. And so I mapped it and our investigator finished doing their thing and I'm uploading it to software to create the map. And one of the traffic units for that police department, he said, hey, how accurate is your measurement? And he goes, zoom in and measure from here to here and see what you got or get. And I did. And he looked at his paper from where he walked it on the ground and it was literally like within a half inch. And he's like, I just walked all this stuff. It took me all this time. And so I think over time, everybody will have this piece of technology.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, just seeing what the capability is in terms of the time saving you're describing as a resource is just really interesting to see how that's going to drive things forward. But anyway, those are all the questions we had for you prepared today, which is usually the time we like to pass the mic back to you and see anything you want to plug or about your program or anything you want to shout out that you're working on right now.
We have, with our program, when we first started out, I was using Lance to fly when capable or when needed in certain airspaces. But we have obtained a jurisdictional COA waiver and a blanket COA waiver. So that's been awesome, and have been able to write an entire training manual for new people that want to pilot the drone within our agency, have that done. And then obviously our agency's guidelines and procedures, things like that, really just working on collecting data to get more drones in our fleet and go from there is kind of like the next step in the project. I would say we did just turn in an abstract to present at our NAME conference in the fall, which is the National Association of Medical Examiners. So hopefully that gets accepted and we can show the rest of the medical examiner community the benefits of having the drone in our line of work and what it can do. So I would say that, and just growing the program and helping others out. I like taking time whenever I'm out flying and talk to the public, because one thing that I've realized, and even myself before I even got into all this, is when anybody's outside and they look up and see a drone, the first thing that comes to their mind is they're spying on me. They're looking at me. That's just kind of everybody's natural reflex. But I'll have people come up to me and talk, and then so I'll engage in the conversation, do some community engagement, and just tell them, oh, I'm out training, just practicing, mapping this field or something like that, and even show them and explain the equipment. And they walk away there with a whole new set of knowledge, like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that. And that's cool. And we just thought you were spying. And that's what all the drones do, is they go around and look at people. And it's like, no, not at all. And that's another good thing about having DroneSense that I really like, is that it saves the data on the platform. And if somebody comes and says, hey, you were flying your drone by my house, and my daughter or my wife, they were laying outside half naked, and so you were spying on them and collecting video or whatever, I could say, well, actually, no, that's not true at all. And it will show, as you know, the angle of the gimbal and what it was actually looking at in the flight pattern. So that's another big thing, and that I've been working on, is just community engagement, just getting out there and having conversations. And because drones aren't going away, and it's going to even become, really big here. They're even going to get bigger, carry more payloads, different things, especially when you go into like eVTOL aircraft. It's going to hit the market. Literally, you're going to transform the traffic into the skies, and it's going to be an entire traffic system up there. So I think by having these conversations and engaging early on to help people understand, that way there's not this fear. And I'm sure there are some people out there using them for bad use. There's always going to be that in any line of work, but not ours. And so unless you're deceased, we're really not interested.
Well, no, those are great points, and I appreciate that perspective. And thank you again for taking the time to visit with us today, Philip, and for the work you guys are doing serving the community.
Oh, yeah.
It's been great to hear those insights. And we want to thank everybody on the internet who joined us today.
Yes.
And listened in on Dronecast, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, John. Thanks, DroneSense.
Thank you, sir. Dronecast, Rethinking Public Safety one drone at a time, is brought to you by DroneSense. To find out more about DroneSense and how our comprehensive situational awareness platform can help you fly, share, and manage your drone program, please visit DroneSense.com. That's DroneSense.com. And then make sure to search for Dronecast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else that podcasts are found. Please don't forget to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at DroneSense, thanks for listening.